We are continuing our series on sanctification. So we've kind of tried to work so far through the definition of sanctification, as well as last video I tried to give a sense of encouragement, showing that it's a progressive process and that it is sometimes slow going, sometimes it's a struggle, and other times sanctification seems to be quick, fast, high paced. Sometimes sanctification is one step forward, two steps back. Other times it's three steps forward. Um, so in this video, I just want to lay out an important distinction as we think about sanctification, as we think about the command from First Peter, be holy as I am holy. And I just want to show the distinction between what justification is and what sanctification is, because they are two different things. They're both encompassed in what is overall the umbrella of salvation, of God saving a people for himself. But justification and sanctification are two different aspects, two different important aspects that need to be clarified as far as they're not the same thing. So first, what is justification? I like the 1689 London Baptist Confession. I like how they define justification, which goes like this. Justification is those whom God effectually called, he also freely justifies, not by infusing righteousness into them, but by pardoning their sin and by accounting and accepting their persons as righteous, not for anything wrought in them or done by them, but for Christ's sake alone. It is not by imputing faith itself, the act of believing, or any other evangelical obedience to the person as their righteousness, but by imputing Christ's active obedience unto the whole law and passive obedience in his death for their whole and sole righteousness by faith, which faith they have not of themselves, it is a gift of God. So what the confession is getting at as far as justification is a declaration or an imputation of the righteousness, the perfect obedience, the perfect life and death of Jesus Christ onto the person. Thus, God, seeing the righteousness of Christ imputed on the person, then declares them justified, declares them having the ability to stand before them. Thus, kind of like the imagery when God looks at us as his children, he doesn't really see us. He sees Jesus Christ, his perfect Son, imputed onto us as our righteousness, as our person, so that we can stand before him. And to clarify, it's nothing that we did, nothing that we possess, nothing we can do, not even the faith that we have is what makes us righteous. It is only Christ's righteousness, which we're tied to by the faith that we have, but even that faith is a gift from God. We don't possess it on ourselves. Justification hits at this idea where we don't bring anything to the cross. We don't bring anything to our salvation except the sin that makes it necessary. Everything about our salvation comes from Christ and from God the Father. So that is justification, a once for all declaration that you are a righteous person because of Christ's righteousness, his perfect obedience in life and death imputed on you. Now let's go to sanctification. And again, we'll use the same confession, the Second London Baptist Confession, and their definition of sanctification to see the difference. Sanctification is, right, they who are united to Christ, those effectually called and regenerate, have a new heart and a new spirit created in them through the virtue of Christ's death and resurrection, are also farther sanctified, really and personally, through the same virtues, by his word and spirit indwelling in them. The dominion of the whole body of sin is now beginning to be destroyed, and several lusts thereof more and more are weakened and mortified, and they more and more quicken and are strengthened in all saving graces to the practice of all true holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. So the definition here of sanctification is a progressive process that we are beginning to destroy and kill the sin and the lusts of the flesh. We are growing more and more in strength and in grace to be like Christ, to be holy. But it comes out of this new heart and this new spirit that is put in us at the moment of our regeneration, at the moment of our saving by God. So sanctification, as we've looked at, is a process that is a flowing out of this new work that God has done to us in our heart and in our spirit. So just to clarify here, as we think about sanctification, it is different from justification in that justification is a declaration, a once-for-all moment act declared by God over us, and it comes from outside of us. Whereas sanctification is a growth, is a progress, is a continuing to be more and more like Jesus because of the work that God has done in us through a new heart and a new spirit. So I know this video has gone on a little longer, but I just wanted to kind of lay out for you the differences between sanctification and justification as you read them in the scriptures, as you hear them taught, as you hear me teach or preach them. Hopefully this helps you understand the differences between the two theological terms of justification and sanctification.